You're losing her not because you're not enough, but because you care too much about the wrong things while you obsess over her body. She's testing your soul, and the more you chase, the more invisible you become. Socrates warned that the man who doesn't know himself will be ruled by others. In a world where men trade their power for a smile or a touch, this video will show you the shift that flips everything. Once you stop craving her body and start mastering your mind, you become the man she can't ignore. Stay until the end, and you'll never see women or yourself the same way again. You think you're chasing her body, but you're really chasing a feeling of validation. The modern dating scene thrives on this illusion. Men pursue beauty like it's the prize, but beauty fades and desire gets bored. Socrates would challenge this instinct and ask why you desire what you cannot control. When you're addicted to the external, you're giving her the power. You're playing her game without even realizing it. In today's world, beauty is currency. Social media turned it into a weapon. Women learn early that attention equals control. The more you crave her body, the more she owns your mind. Socrates warned about being ruled by your impulses. The man who lets desire lead him is no different from a slave. He might look free, but he's chained from within. This illusion is not just about her looks. It's about your lack of inner direction. You're letting something outside define your worth. That creates anxiety, neediness, and fear of loss. Socrates believed in questioning the surface to find the truth underneath, and the truth is harsh. When you idolize her body, you shrink your own soul. You become reactive instead of sovereign. The power game flips the moment you stop caring. Not pretending to stop, actually letting go. When you detach from the illusion, she feels it, and what she once used to control you becomes useless. Socrates taught that wisdom starts with knowing what not to chase. Desire unchecked is a leash. Clarity is the blade that cuts it. Socrates believed that the body was just a vessel, and that true value comes from the soul. He constantly challenged those who obsessed over appearances and pleasures. To him, focusing on the physical was a sign of ignorance. A man who lives for beauty is a man without depth. He warned that chasing the body blinds you to the person's essence. And when you miss the essence, you end up empty. When you only care about her looks, you're ignoring her character. You're making yourself replaceable because beauty is everywhere. What's rare is a man who sees beyond it. Socrates would say that if you're impressed by her body, you don't know her. And worse, you don't know yourself. Men who build their identity around external things always collapse when they lose them. The soul is where meaning, loyalty, and truth live. But you can't recognize it unless you've connected with your own. Socrates didn't just speak philosophy. He lived it through radical self-examination. He believed no one could lead others unless they first understood themselves. If you don't value your own soul, you'll settle for bodies that give you nothing back. Stop giving your attention away so cheaply. You were made for more than visual stimulation. You were made to grow, to think, to question, to build. When you elevate your values, you attract people who see the real you. And paradoxically, the moment you stop worshiping her body is the moment she starts wondering what makes you different. Socrates believed that the man ruled by pleasure is already defeated. When you chase comfort, sex, and validation, you surrender your power. The more you need something, the more control it has over you. This is how you become predictable and easy to manipulate. If she knows you'll do anything for her body, she owns you. That's not attraction, that's submission disguised as desire. Pleasure is deceptive because it feels like freedom while enslaving you. Socrates warned against living through the senses alone. He saw it as a trap that distracts you from purpose and truth. A man addicted to pleasure stops asking the right questions. He avoids discomfort, and with that, avoids growth. You become a man who reacts instead of leads. Your attachment becomes her tool. If she senses you're willing to compromise your standards just to keep her around, she stops respecting you. Respect comes from restraint, not desperation. Socrates taught that true strength is found in self-control. The man who can say no has more influence than the man who always says yes. Detachment reveals power. Craving reveals weakness. You're not supposed to be numb to pleasure, but you must never be ruled by it. The key is to enjoy without clinging. When you can walk away, you become rare. Women chase what they cannot easily control. Socrates knew this. The man who conquers his urges becomes impossible to dominate. And that kind of man shifts every room he walks into. Women don't test you to hurt you. They test you to locate your center. If your mood shifts every time she pulls away or acts distant, she sees your weakness. Socrates believed that an unexamined life leads to confusion. A man who doesn't know himself is easily thrown off balance. And when you're off balance, you're easy to manipulate. Her tests are not random. They reveal your emotional stability. She wants to know if you're grounded or just pretending. If you panic when she goes cold or chase harder when she pulls back, you fail the test. Women instinctively challenge a man's confidence to see if it's real. Socrates taught that knowledge is virtue. If you understand your own mind, her mood doesn't control your actions. That's real strength. When she can predict your reactions, she loses interest. Predictability built on emotional weakness kills attraction. What sparks desire is a man who remains still in chaos, not cold, but calm. Socrates pursued truth no matter how uncomfortable it made others. That same courage must exist in you. If she senses that you fear her leaving, she knows she holds the power. The irony is that the more centered you are, the less she wants to leave. Emotional strength creates attraction deeper than looks or words. She feels safe and challenged around. A man who doesn't fold. Socrates didn't seek approval. He sought clarity. And in relationships, clarity is more attractive than charm. Detachment is not pretending you don't care. It's truly not needing the outcome. Socrates believed that freedom begins when desire no longer controls you. When you're emotionally detached, you stop chasing validation. That makes you rare in a world full of needy men. Most guys overinvest early, trying to impress or secure attention. But the one who's already full doesn't beg for scraps. Genuine detachment is magnetic because it signals abundance. It tells her you're not desperate. You have options, purpose, and direction. Socrates didn't seek pleasure or popularity. He pursued inner truth. That mindset creates gravity. A man who's centered in himself draws people in effortlessly. Women sense when your attention is a choice, not a need. And that shifts the power dynamic completely. Detachment creates mystery. If she doesn't know where she stands with you, she becomes curious. Curiosity breeds attraction. But this only works when your detachment is real. If you fake it, she'll feel the performance. Socrates urged men to live in alignment with truth. You can't lie to yourself and expect lasting respect. Detachment starts with honesty about your own worth. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you start becoming yourself. That presence, that calm, that quiet confidence is what pulls her in. She starts chasing the man who doesn't chase her. And it's not a trick, it's a transformation. Socrates knew that the highest power comes from needing nothing and standing fully in who you are. Socrates made one idea clear above all else: know yourself. Without that, everything else collapses. Most emotional neediness in men comes from not knowing who they are. You chase women hoping they'll give you an identity. You rely on their attention to feel important. But when that attention fades, so does your sense of worth. That's not love, that's dependency. Self-knowledge kills this cycle. When you understand your values, your mission, and your flaws, you stop needing others to complete you. Socrates believed that wisdom begins with admitting ignorance. That means looking in the mirror without fear. You must face your insecurities head-on. Because if you don't, they'll control how you act around women, and women can smell that. Weakness immediately. Neediness is not about how often you text or how much you care. It's about why you do it. If the reason is fear of loss, you're already lost. Socrates taught that the examined life leads to freedom, freedom from the mind. Games, the chasing, the emotional roller coaster. You can't be manipulated by someone if you're not afraid to lose them. Use self-knowledge as your armor. Know your limits, know your purpose, know what you're building. The man who knows himself doesn't need to prove anything. That's what makes him powerful. And in a world full of confusion, the man who walks with inner clarity is the one she will remember long after everyone else fades. Socrates didn't conquer armies or build empires. He conquered himself. He believed that true strength begins with self-mastery. You can't lead others, attract loyalty, or maintain respect if you can't govern your own mind. Most men today are ruled by impulse. They chase women, pleasure, and approval without control. But the man who controls himself becomes untouchable. Self-mastery means disciplining your emotions, your habits, and your focus. Socrates spent his life questioning his own thoughts before challenging others. That's the standard. If you can't sit with your own discomfort, you'll escape into distractions. Women pick up on this immediately. They can see if you're guided by purpose or tossed around by emotion, and they respond accordingly. A man who's mastered himself doesn't argue for attention. He doesn't chase validation or react to disrespect. He sets boundaries and lives by principles. Socrates would call this virtue in action. Not perfection, but consistent integrity. When a woman meets a man like this, her entire energy shifts. She sees something rare, someone she can't control and yet feels safe around. You must stop trying to control others and start controlling yourself. That's where real influence begins. If you want to dominate your environment, start with your internal world. Socrates proved that a man's strength isn't in his status, but in his soul. And the man who rules himself becomes the man others can't help but follow. When you make a woman the center of your life, you lose yourself. Socrates warned that when we give our purpose away, we become slaves to it. Many men confuse love with obsession. They think devotion means prioritizing her above everything. But what actually happens is you become emotionally dependent. And the moment she senses that, the dynamic shifts against you. A woman doesn't want to be your god. She wants to follow a man who walks with purpose. If your whole identity revolves around pleasing her, you lose mystery, drive, and masculine energy. Socrates lived to seek truth, not approval. That's what made him unshakable. You must ask yourself, what are you really living for? If your answer is her, you've already lost control. When you revolve your life around someone else, you stop evolving, your goals fade, your standards drop, and your self-respect gets traded for comfort. Socrates taught that a man's purpose is found in his inner journey. That journey demands solitude, focus, and sacrifice. A woman can be part of that path, but she can never be the path itself. The moment you realign with your mission, everything changes. You speak differently, move differently, and radiate something she can't ignore. She doesn't want a servant. She wants a man she can respect. Socrates knew the danger of building your life on something you cannot control. And in relationships, purpose is the only foundation that doesn't crack. Most men are trained to chase success, chase validation, chase women. But Socrates flipped that completely. He believed that truth and power come from within. When you stop running after everything outside you, you begin to find what truly matters. External chasing is endless. There's always another goal, another woman, another high. But internal strength builds something eternal. The shift begins when you stop asking what you can get and start asking who you can become. Chasing is rooted in lack. Strength is rooted in presence. Socrates didn't seek status. He sought understanding. He wasn't distracted by opinions or approval, and that made him powerful. Women feel that difference. The man who's grounded in self becomes more attractive than any performance could achieve. When you focus on internal growth, your energy changes. You become calmer, more deliberate, less reactive. You're not moved by every text or silence. You're not obsessed with results, and that detachment gives you freedom. Socrates would say that only the man who governs himself is truly free. That's the kind of man who doesn't chase because he knows his value. Your strength doesn't scream. It resonates. It's not about aggression. It's about presence. Build the mind before you build the brand. Build the discipline before you chase desire. Socrates lived by the idea that the unexamined life is not worth living. And in the world of men and women, the unexamined man is the one who always loses. The moment you stop chasing her is the moment she starts questioning. Not because you're playing games, but because your energy shifted. Socrates taught that people only value what they fear losing. When you remove your attention, she feels that absence. And if it came from a place of strength, not bitterness, she begins to wonder. Curiosity replaces control. Attraction returns where desperation once lived. Chasing tells her you need her more than she needs you. It flips the natural polarity. but when you walk away with calm and clarity, it sends a message she can't ignore. You are no longer available on demand. Socrates believed that the wise man needs nothing, and that kind of independence is deeply attractive, especially in a world full of men who cling. The man who no longer needs her body becomes the man she respects. He shows that his worth isn't tied to her presence. That triggers a different kind of response, not pity, but pursuit, because now she sees a man with options, direction, and peace. That's rare, and people chase what's rare. The more you value yourself, the more others are forced to do the same. You don't need revenge, silence, or manipulation. You just need power, and Socratic power comes from knowing who you are and standing on it. When you stop chasing her body, you create space for her to chase your soul, and that's the shift that changes everything. What if everything you were taught about desire, women, and power was backwards? Socrates warned that without self-knowledge, you become a prisoner to things that feel good but weaken you. And in relationships, that blindness costs you respect, purpose, and freedom. So now the question is yours. Will you keep chasing what you can't control, or will you start becoming the man who doesn't need to chase at all? If this message hit you, subscribe to the channel and start walking the path of mastery with us.